What's going on, everybody? Jay How here. In this Diablo 3 Barbarian video, we're going to cover one of the best builds for patch 2.3. This makes use of the updated Immortal King set, as well as a couple skills and other pieces of gear we haven't traditionally used. This guide will cover the skills that are going to be needed, the gear, some of the alternatives, and what you'll need in Kanai's Cube as well. Now, there likely won't be any changes to what's currently going on with these skills and the sets for this build, but be sure and check back once the patch goes live to see if there were any updates. For the skills, we're going to be running with Rend with Mutilate, Furious Charge with Merciless Assault, Call of the Ancients, Together as One, Battle Rage with Bloodshed, Wrath of the Berserker with Insanity, Warcry with Veteran's Warning, and for your passives, Ruthless, Rampage, Weapons Master, and Boon of Bolcathos. The way this build works is that you're going to be using the Focus and Restraint. What you'll be doing is you'll be proccing both of those using your Rend and your Furious Charge as your generator. You'll be double stacking your Rend with Mutilate with the use of the Lamentation belt. Once that's stacked, you will go crazy with Furious Charge. This might also be the way that you start the battle. With Merciless Assault, it will allow you to have this on cooldown and be able to charge over and over. In greater rifts, density is generally there for you to hit enough enemies to reset this. Call of the Ancients with Together as One is a 50% damage reduction. You're going to be taking a lot of damage in higher greater rifts, so using this to be able to reduce some of that damage is very important. Next, we have Battle Rage with Bloodshed. This allows critical hits to cause an explosion of blood, dealing 20% of the damage done to all other nearby enemies. Now, not only does this increase your base damage and your crit hit chance, but having that extra splash damage is very important. Then you've got Wrath of the Berserker. With the update in patch 2.2 to the 6-piece bonus moving into patch 2.3, this will be up 100% of the time. Having this extra damage is crucial to be able to get through those higher greater rifts at a very quick pace. Next up, Warcry. And in this one, we're going to go with Veteran's Warning, which increases your dodge chance by 30% while you're affected by it. Now, this is different than using Impunity, which says increase resistances to all elements by 20% while affected by Warcry. Now, you could go with that if you do find that you need to be able to reduce some of the incoming damage as far as the elements. However, dodging is a very important skill to use. It's very underrated and can really help you avoid a lot of damage, especially when you're in there using Furious Charge and darting around and then having to stand still to cast Rend. It's a quick cast, but you still need to be able to avoid damage as opposed to absorb less damage. For your passives, Ruthless, you deal 40% additional damage to enemies below 30% health. This is very good because with Rend stacking, it's going to be trickling down damage as you dart around with Furious Charge. It will also be very important on the Rift boss or the Greater Rift boss to be able to get them down quicker. Now, they do have less health in patch 2.3, however, they do still stay alive much longer than anything else. So being able to do that extra damage when the time is right is very important. Rampage. This is really good because you will have this up pretty much 100% of the time, especially in a Rift or Greater Rift, because the density is much higher there. Increasing your strength by 1% up to 25 times is a very nice thing to have throughout the duration all the way until you get to that Greater Rift boss. Weapons Master. 2 Fury per hit with your mighty weapon. Now, this is very important because you will be using Furious Charge to generate Fury, but you'll also need to be able to generate Fury because that will be on cooldown when there's not enough enemies around. So to be able to have that extra Fury when you need it is going to be important because Rend does need to be double stacked, which means it's going to eat up your Fury. Boon of Bolcathos. This says reduce the cooldown of your Wrath of the Berserker by 30 seconds. Now, while the IK set does allow for cooldown reduction for every 10 Fury that you spend, you're probably not going to spend it fast enough to run without Boon of Bolcathos. That extra 30 seconds is crucial to be able to have 100% uptime on Wrath of the Berserker. Without that, you'll find yourself stuck on enemies for a very long time. That 250% damage cannot be passed up, which is why you're going to run with this passive. Now let's take a look at the gear. The gear revolves heavily around the Immortal King set, which for the 2-piece bonus, Call of the Ancients last until they die. They don't normally die, so having 100% uptime on that 50% damage reduction is very nice, plus it plays into your 4- and 6-piece bonus. Reduce the cooldown of Wrath of the Berserker and Call of the Ancients by 3 seconds for every 10 fury you spend with an attack. This is what I said. You won't be able to have 100% uptime generally without Boon of Bolcathos as a passive. But this does allow it to come around quick enough with that passive ability to be able to have that uptime that you need. The biggest part of the Immortal King change is the 6-piece bonus. This originally was 100% increased damage. However, it has been bumped up to 250% increased damage. It feels like it's right where it needs to be because it's now on par, if not a little better, than the Whirlwind build. This could possibly change, but it would be ever so slightly. So again, check back once the patch goes live if it's not already. Now, for the sets, you'll need the Immortal King's Boulder Breaker and the Immortal King's Belt. So the belt and the weapon are absolutely necessary. Now, you'll need some combination of 6 pieces between the IK set and the 2-piece Wrath of the Waste set, which says, on the 2-piece bonus, increase the damage per second of Rend by 500% and its duration to 15 seconds. This allows you to go in, double stack Rend, get that extra damage, and then Furious Charge your way around, dealing tons of damage to things that are already affected there. For this particular setup, obtaining 6 pieces can allow you to interchange out pieces that are better in certain slots than the others. What I have set up is the boots, pants, chest, and helm for the Immortal King set, and the shoulders and gloves for the Wrath of the Waste set. They all rolled very well in those slots, so using them there is important. Also, be sure and note that on the shoulders and the chest piece, you can roll increased Rend damage. If you find that you need to go a different direction and say, roll for survivability, then by all means go that. But in order to push those higher greater rifts, you are going to need as much damage as possible. For your bracers, the strong arm bracers are a very nice choice here. Furious Charge knocks back enemies along its path. So, enemies hit by knockbacks suffer up to 30% damage for 5 seconds when they land. So boosting up the damage on what you're already using is very important to keep up max damage. For your rings, the focus and restraint. This is a very key part of the build. Your Furious Charge acts as a generator, and your Rend acts as a spender. Now you can do that in other ways, but this is a guaranteed way to be able to keep your damage up and to be able to keep your focus and restraint procced. So those are the jewelry. If you have a nice Hellfire amulet, which it's a little bit easier to do now, then by all means roll a nice Hellfire. Else any type of damage mitigating amulet or other amulet that might benefit you more in the damage department, then go with that. For the legendary gems, the Pain Enhancer is a nice choice because it allows you to deal extra physical damage as well as gain a little bit more increased attack speed to enemies that are bleeding around you. Bane of the Trapped because you are going to be near stuff all the time. This allows you to put them under the aura to be able to take increased damage when they're under those control impairing effects. Lastly, the Taeguk. Now, you might opt for this one to run with something like an Esoteric Alteration to be able to mitigate more damage. However, if you can run this properly and keep your Rend going, then utilizing the Taeguk can benefit you greatly if you can keep the stacks up. This takes a little bit of practice, but once you get the hang of it, you'll find yourself doing much more damage, plus you get the extra increased survivability from the armor stack once you get it past level 25. Looking at the Kanai's Cube bonuses, the Furnace is unpassable. This is going to do a lot of damage against elites and is just too hard to pass up. This is the #1 item for this slot. For your armor slot, Lamentation, Rend now stacks up to 2 times on an enemy. This has actually been around a while, however it's just not found its way into a proper build until now. This is a very important item in the armor slot because you're getting that extra damage from the Wrath of the Waste, plus it's getting boosted from the Immortal King set. So, Lamentation for your armor. For your jewelry passive, because you're going to be taking a lot of damage and you're going to be darting around trying to hit as much as you possibly can to get through those greater rifts, the Unity is very hard to pass up. Having this in conjunction with your Call of the Ancients to reduce damage as well actually helps survivability and allows you to spec damage in every other place for this build. So mitigating damage by 50% both in the Unity and the Call of the Ancients department really helps. A few key things to note for the gear is that on your strong arm bracers, you'll probably go with physical skill damage because you're going to be stacking Rend and then you're going to be using Furious Charge more than you are with Rend. It allows you to go around, dart around, hit more stuff, and that physical damage is going to probably benefit you more than the cold skill damage. For your helmet, unless you're having trouble getting Wrath of the Berserker around, having a life percent gem, which is the Amethyst gem, is probably going to be a better bet because you are going to need every bit of health you can get once you get to those higher, greater rifts. Cooldown reduction is nice, however it's not really needed except for Wrath of the Berserker. If you're spending enough Fury, then you don't really need this. So going with more survivability is key here. A few notes for some gameplay is to make sure that when you're darting around, you stack those Rend stacks where damage is not already stacked. You can easily dart to another location and dart back to be able to do more damage, utilizing your Furious Charge to be able to get in and out of danger, as well as resetting it so that you have it up and not sitting around trying to cast your Rend and then having nowhere to go, is going to take a little bit of practice. Now, don't get frustrated when you first get started because knowing when to charge and when to Rend is important. Oftentimes, standing on the sidelines while things are bleeding instead of running in trying to swing again and not Furious Charge, it's going to take some discipline because if it's not on cooldown, you need to wait for it to come back to be able to get in and get out or move on to the next group. Being able to understand how far you need to push and when to push is going to take practice. Elites you used to skip. With the blues, you can actually fight them and probably get away with pushing the greater rifts a little quicker. The yellow guys, depending on how you want to approach them, you might need to skip them and move on. Having Furious Charge allows you to get far enough away if you can chain it back together. That way they don't chase you and you can move on to the next group. Or if you like to tag them and drag you along with you, that's acceptable too. So that's it for this Diablo 3 Barbarian guide using the IK set with the 2-piece Wrath set, as well as using some skills that you haven't necessarily used in the proper manner. Having Rend and Furious Charge together pulls you away from the Whirlwind build. Now, there are other Barbarian builds that will be coming, namely the Hammer of the Ancients, the Seismic Slam, the rehash of the Whirlwind build. They're all extremely viable and can take you clear into the Greater Rift 60s, if not higher, as things progress. So I encourage you that if you haven't subscribed already and you're looking for more Diablo 3 builds, whether it be around the Barbarian or any other class, to be sure and subscribe and check back once the patch goes live. Again, things are subject to change, but it seems like we're pretty much on the right path with the Barbarian because he seems to be in a very good place on the PTR. Now, if you like the build or you like the video, feel free and hit that like button below because that is always appreciated. Or feel free and leave me a comment and let me know what you think and what you're most excited about for the Barbarian. This is one good reason, if you're trying to get away from the Whirlwind, that you might enjoy. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. Till next time, happy hunting. See you again.